I like that laugh.
At 15 years old, Justin Bieber had everything: money, fame, private jets, millions of fans screaming his name. He was living the kind of life most people spend their entire lives dreaming about. But years later, Justin admitted something that almost nobody expected to hear. There were moments when he wished he had never become famous, not because he hated music, not because he hated his fans, but because becoming Justin Bieber came with a price nobody warned him about. A price that slowly took away something far more valuable than money could ever replace. And the strangest part, it didn't happen overnight. It happened so gradually that the whole world watched it happen without realizing what they were actually seeing. Because this isn't really the story of a pop star. It's the story of what happens when a child is turned into one of the most famous people on earth before he's old enough to understand what fame actually is. And by the end of this video, you'll probably see Justin Bieber very differently, because the biggest tragedy of his career wasn't the arrests or the headlines or even the public breakdowns. It happened long before any of those. It started the moment the world decided Justin Bieber no longer belonged to himself. But before we get there, there's one moment from his career that changes the way you see everything that came before it. We'll come back to that. Because first, we need to understand just how impossible Justin Bieber's life became. Most celebrities spend years climbing toward fame. Justin Bieber skipped that part. One day, he was uploading videos from his small hometown in Canada. The next, he was standing on stages in front of tens of thousands of screaming people. His songs were everywhere. His face was everywhere. His name became impossible to escape. And for millions of teenagers, he wasn't just a singer. He was the biggest celebrity on the planet. From the outside, it looked perfect. But fame has a strange habit. The faster it arrives, the less time you have to become the person who's supposed to handle it. Imagine being 15 years old. Now, imagine millions of strangers discussing your appearance every single day. Your voice, your haircut, your relationships, your mistakes, everything. Most teenagers worry about fitting in at school. Justin Bieber had to fit into the expectations of the entire world. And that's a game nobody wins. But here's what's fascinating. The first price Justin paid wasn't privacy. It wasn't freedom. It was something much harder to notice. His identity, because something strange happens when the whole world tells you who you are before you figured it out yourself. Eventually, you start believing them. Justin wasn't just becoming famous, he was becoming a product. Record labels needed hits. Managers needed tours. Brands needed endorsements. Fans needed perfection. The media needed drama. Everyone wanted something from Justin Bieber. Everyone except Justin Bieber himself. And that's where the real story begins, because children aren't designed to carry the expectations of millions of people. Adults struggle with that kind of pressure. Imagine placing it on someone who couldn't even legally vote, but none of that mattered, because the machine had already started. And once it starts, it rarely slows down. Every album had to be bigger. Every tour had to sell more tickets. Every appearance had to create headlines. The world wasn't asking whether Justin was okay, it was asking whether Justin was still profitable. That sounds harsh, but look at how celebrity culture works. When a celebrity succeeds, we celebrate them. When they struggle, we consume them. Either way, they remain entertainment. Justin Bieber was no exception. If anything, he became the perfect example, because the same fans who once adored him slowly began turning against him. At first, it was small people joked about his haircut, his voice, his fan base. Then the jokes became insults. Then the insults became headlines. Suddenly, Justin Bieber wasn't just famous, he was cool to hate. And that's one of the strangest things about internet culture. Sometimes people don't dislike someone because of what they've done. They dislike them because everyone else already does. The internet creates momentum. Once enough people start laughing, everyone joins in. Justin Bieber became less of a person and more of a punchline. But beneath the jokes, something much darker was happening, something most people completely missed. Because while the world was arguing about whether Justin Bieber was annoying, Justin Bieber was quietly growing up, except he wasn't growing up like everyone else. Every awkward teenage phase, every bad decision, every emotional mistake was happening in front of hundreds of millions of people. Think back to your own teenage years, the embarrassing haircut, the stupid arguments, the bad relationships, the moments you'd rather forget. Now imagine every single one of those moments becoming international news. That's not fame, that's surveillance. And surveillance changes people. Psychologists have long understood that people behave differently when they know they're constantly being watched. Now, imagine never escaping that feeling. Not at home, not at dinner, not on vacation, not even while walking down the street. This is that moment I told you about at the start of this video. In 2015, Justin Bieber sat down for an interview on Ellen. Halfway through the conversation, completely unprompted, he said, I feel like I am in a zoo, like I am something to look at. Nobody looks at me like I'm a human being." The audience laughed. Ellen changed the subject. Almost nobody noticed what he had just said. The cameras never disappeared, neither did the expectations, and eventually, neither did the pressure. By his late teens, Justin had everything most people associate with success: fame, money, influence, luxury, but something wasn't adding up. Because if success is supposed to make people happier, why did Justin seem to be falling apart? That question would haunt his entire career. And the answer wasn't as simple as drugs or bad decisions or growing up too fast. Those were symptoms. The real cause ran much deeper, because there was one thing Justin Bieber lost almost as soon as he became famous, and once it was gone, he could never truly get it back. What was the one thing Justin Bieber lost? The ability to become an ordinary person. Most of us get to figure out who we are in private. We make mistakes, we change our minds, we outgrow old versions of ourselves, and hardly anyone notices. Justin Bieber never had that luxury. The world met him at 15, then it expected him to stay exactly the same forever. But people don't work like that, especially teenagers. The boy who sang Baby was never going to be the same person at 20 or 25 or 30. The problem was that millions of people didn't want Justin Bieber to grow. They wanted him to remain the version they had fallen in love with. And every time he changed, someone felt disappointed. That created an impossible trap. If he stayed the same, people called him manufactured. If he changed, people said he'd lost himself. There was no version of Justin Bieber that could satisfy everyone. And eventually, he stopped trying. By the early 2010s, the headlines had changed. They weren't about hit songs anymore, they were about reckless driving. Confrontations with paparazzi, the egging incident, public outbursts. Every mistake became front page news. For many people, this was proof that fame had gone to his head. But what if those headlines were answering the wrong question? Instead of asking, what's wrong with Justin Bieber? Maybe we should have been asking, what happens when someone grows up inside a machine that never lets them be human? Because fame doesn't freeze time, it freezes expectations. The audience remembers the smiling teenager. The celebrity has to live through everything that comes after. In 2017, halfway through the biggest tour of his career, Justin Bieber canceled the remaining 14 shows. No explanation, no apology, just a short statement saying he needed to rest and protect his mental health. The internet exploded. People called him ungrateful, spoiled, a disappointment. Almost nobody said he looked like a man who was dying inside. Celebrity culture has a strange rhythm. We build people up, then we watch to see if they fall. The rise is inspiring. The collapse becomes entertainment, and redemption, if it happens, becomes another headline. Justin Bieber wasn't just living his life, he was trapped inside a story the public had already written for him. But here's the twist. The story didn't end the way many people expected. Instead of chasing more attention, Justin gradually started stepping away from it. He became more selective with interviews. He spoke about faith, healing, and trying to rebuild his life away from constant public validation. Some people rolled their eyes, others thought it was an excuse. But imagine spending nearly your entire adolescence performing for strangers. Imagine waking up every day knowing millions of people have an opinion about who you should be. At some point, walking away stops looking like weakness. It starts looking like survival. There's another detail about Justin Bieber's life that often gets overlooked. He achieved nearly every traditional definition of success before his brain had even fully developed. By the time most people are worrying about college, their first job, or paying rent, Justin Bieber had already earned more money than most people would see in a lifetime. He had traveled the world, won awards, broken records, played sold-out stadiums, completed dreams that many artists spend decades chasing. So what do you chase after you've already caught every dream? That's a question fame rarely answers, because success is exciting when it's moving towards something, but once you've arrived, you're left alone with yourself. And if you've never had the chance to discover who that person is, success can feel strangely empty. Maybe that's why Justin's story resonates beyond celebrity gossip. It's an exaggerated version of something many people experience. We spend years believing that one achievement will finally make us complete. The promotion, the money, the recognition, but external success can never permanently solve an internal question. Who am I when nobody is watching? For Justin Bieber, that question became almost impossible to answer, because somebody was always watching, always filming, always commenting, always judging. When he looked tired, people assumed he was ungrateful. When he smiled, people said it was fake. When he disappeared for a while, people demanded explanations. When he returned, they expected him to be completely healed, as if healing has a schedule, as if trauma works on a deadline. But perhaps the most remarkable part of Justin Bieber's story isn't that he struggled, it's that he survived. Child stars have a long history of tragic endings. Some never escape addiction, some disappear completely. Some spend the rest of their lives trying to outrun the person they became famous for being. Justin's story could have ended that way. Instead, it became something more complicated. Not a perfect comeback, not a fairy tale, just a human being trying to build a life after spending his childhood as a global product. And maybe that's the real price of being Justin Bieber. It wasn't the paparazzi, it wasn't the criticism, it wasn't even the scandals. Those were visible. The deeper cost was invisible. He lost the freedom to become himself without an audience. Every version of Justin Bieber belonged to someone else first. To fans, to critics, to record labels, to the media. Everyone had a claim on him except the person living inside the headlines. When people ask whether fame changes someone, they're asking the wrong question. Of course, it changes them. The better question is whether anyone could stay the same under those circumstances. Would you? Would I? Imagine having your worst year documented forever. Imagine every mistake becoming searchable. Imagine millions of strangers believing they know you because they've watched a few interviews and read a few headlines. That's not just pressure. That's a life without anonymity, a life where every version of yourself is permanently preserved somewhere online. And maybe that's why Justin Bieber's story matters. Not because he's famous, but because it forces us to question something we've romanticized for generations. We've been taught that fame is the ultimate reward, that if you become successful enough, admired enough, wealthy enough, life finally makes sense. Justin Bieber reached that destination before he was old enough to drive. And even he discovered that fame can buy almost anything except peace. Millions of people wanted to be Justin Bieber. Very few ever stopped to ask whether Justin Bieber wanted to be Justin Bieber himself. Fame gave Justin Bieber everything he ever dreamed of. But it also took away the one thing he'll never get back, an ordinary life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next documentary. Until then, take care.